introduction about each other and get to know each other before we start on the technical part of it. So I'll introduce myself first. So as Mama said, even the last day, I'll be your instructor, and I have about 10 years of experience in IM, and I provide training on Okta, Ping Federer, and other IM topics. And alongside that, I also provide consulting services on different IM strategies. Can we start with Kusum?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Azam. I currently work at Oracle. I'm in my first few months here in Austin, and just looking to advance my learning through Okta. Yeah.
Assalamu
Who's going
alaikum.
to
My name is Asfar. Um, I am looking to learn something new. Hopefully, build up a skill set and see where this takes me. So I'm excited to be here.
go next?
I can go next if you want.
Sure.
My name is Irfan. I'm getting into security just based off of the need at my current company. I spoke to our CTO and told him that I had an interest in getting into security, so he encouraged it. And so I'm taking this course as a first step. We currently use PortalGuard, which is similar to Okta. But I just want to learn as much as possible.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Kulsum Patel, and I studied 6 years of Islamic theology, and I'm really looking forward in learning into AMA and Okta.
Great, nice from you. Hira.
Hi, my name is Hera Osmani, and I also have done 6 years of Islamic theology, and I have some experience in just educational background, and I am excited to learn. This is a completely new path for me, and I probably will have tons of questions to ask from you.
Sure. All right, thank you everyone for introducing yourself. I'll go ahead and get started with the topic. So I believe we have gone through the curriculum, which is in your SharePoint, and what we are going to cover in this course. And as with the prerequisites, I believe Mohammed has also shared you Okta basic course, which you might have gone through to have a basic understanding of what the Okta platform is and what it is used for. So in this course, we will be covering an overview of identity and access management and why identity and access management is needed, and why do we need a centralized IAM in basic. Then we'll be studying about user management, the life cycles of user, how user onboards into an organization and goes through different stages before deboarding, which is the final status of a user. We'll learn about applications, what are the different types of applications we see or use around the organization, and how can we achieve single sign-on. That's a topic which we'll discuss later. We'll see about branding, customization, security features of Okta, and then we'll be looking into a few troubleshooting scenarios, wherein as an Okta professionals, we can help an organization verifies an event occurred and what event occurred and so on. And lastly, how we can approach Okta customer services in case of need. So this will be our curriculum, which we'll go through in coming few weeks, and we'll try to learn as much as possible about Okta as a platform. Before I start on Okta or any specialized tool, I would like to understand from your perspective, what do you understand when you hear this term called identity or access? Anyone can answer.
Um,
I just want to know, like, if whatever comes in your mind when you hear this word.
security, user management.
Okay.
I would think what comes to my mind is something more simplistic, who the person is, and what they're doing or something like that.
Great.
Generally, cybersecurity.
Yeah, so all of you are correct. It involves pretty much all of these. So it's about cyber, it's a domain of a cybersecurity for sure. It involves user management and security, as you said, and what the user does in environment. Oh, it also helps us administer from a single point of view of this entire user's life cycle, like from the day the user, or let's say some form of identity started, what it did today, what will it do tomorrow, and like its basic journey throughout the course of its life cycle, so we can track that. So that is the part of identity and access management. But if we break this term into different things, let's first understand about the identity. So what exactly is an identity? Some of you said user, that is correct, but who are these users? What are the source of these users coming from? So when you say users, like, yeah, go ahead, please.
Either an employee or a consumer.
Okay, yeah, nice answer. So they can be employee or consumer. Can they be anything else apart from these two?
Partner, contractor.
Okay.
Can it just be like for
And
personal? Can it be just a personal user who doesn't have to
yeah,
work under
they can
anyone?
be. Yeah.
I guess it would be more general. You could include an admin in there as well.
Okay. You want to put through? So they would be all of these, as well as so all of these examples which you put across, they are all humans. So there is a real person behind these. If an admin or a personal user or consumer or employee, these are all human. But identity does not only belongs to human, it also belongs to non-human services like machines, your printers, servers, and whatnot, different applications. These identity associated with them so that we can track if any activity was performed by anyone, human or not human, we should be able to find out the source. So an identity in an organization, let's say in a company or in a business workplace, yeah, it can be employee, it can be partner, it can be non-human devices like the security cameras, it can be servers, it can be printers, and so on. So they are all identity, and using Okta as a platform, we manage these identities and different level of accesses they have in the environment. So for an employees, it may be they can access certain resource, which can be an application, can be a file server, can be different locations, sites, buildings. These are the things they can access. Similarly, a printer can access certain print servers. They can accept printing jobs. and reported back. Video cameras, security cameras, they also have identities associated with them, so they can store those videos which are getting recorded into some servers and so on. So these level of access can be defined using security tools, and IAM as a domain helps us create those strategies or design those architecture wherein we can create identities which can be our employees, customer, users, or these non-human devices, and manage what they can perform in an organization. So this is an overview of what IAM looks like. And definitely when I say all of these things, these may not be capability of one application like Okta. These may be broken into a number of different services, but this is how an IAM overview looks like. Some of these can be done by Okta, which we'll be looking forward while going through this course. Few of these will be done by other specialized tools, like we have SolarWinds for any server activity management. For print servers, we have specialized tools from those vendors. Okta would mostly help us in managing our users' accesses with their applications. So Okta is a platform which will help you create user credentials, and using that credentials, user would be able to access any sort of applications which they should have access to. And we as an administrator can control what applications will they access. Apart from this, Okta also helps us provide multi-factor, which is another security feature. So currently you might be aware about one form of authentication, which is your username and password. But on top of that, we can ask some more security features like SMS. And we can ask you to download an app like Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator and get a push notification or a code generated from those. So those are on top of your username and password. So they are called as two-factor or multi-factor. So Okta provides that capability. There are certain other security features like creating policy to determine who can access the platform itself, under what conditions, and whether they require MFA prompt or no. So these are the security features which Okta provides. So it acts as a security tool in terms of access management. Um, I'm not sure if you've heard of this, but there can be a scenario when uh, employees from different company would need to log into our company portal in order to access or perform certain activities. So those are also called as like third party authentication. That is also possible using Okta, which we will see using an example called Okta org. Then we'll see how Okta performs single sign-on, which is one of the major feature of this platform. Why companies are using Okta, that you would only have one single username and password, but using that same account, you can log into X number of applications. So you do not need to create an account in each and every application and save password differently. You can just log into Okta, see all the application at one place called dashboard, and you can just click on the application you want to use and you should be logged in without any further authentication. So that is single sign-on, and we are going to study how we can configure that and what are the different methods of configuring it. We will also um, know what are the different ways of creating users in Okta, and if we can bring users from any other third-party sources, which is called as Okta Directory or Directory integrations. So that is something which I'm going to look at, and um, Okta, it is one of the features of Okta. Then branding, definitely. So when you purchase Okta for your organization, you just don't want to see that blue logo from Okta. You want your branding to be in place so that your employee feels safer while using the platform. They trust the platform. So we'll be looking into the branding and customization part of it, how we can like mold it into our portal. Then as an Okta professional, you need to do this day in, day out. the features which you're discussing. So that will be part of your administration, and we will see in case of errors or in case of any events how we can troubleshoot that, or we can find the source of error and rectify it. Then lastly, if we cannot help in getting the resolution ourselves by reading through the doctor documentation or with our knowledge, then we have a support service available from Okta, and we might be able to log a ticket to them, and they can help us in uh, rectifying the errors or the events which has occurred. So this is the whole platform. Apart from that, Okta also provide an automation platform called Okta Workflows, which helps us automate business practices or business logics based on some kind of event which might have occurred in Okta. Let's say when you log in, I want to create an entry in some database for some business activity, or let's say when you change a password, I want an email to be sent to your account stating that your password has been changed at this point of time. So in case if somebody else has changed your password without your knowledge, you can report back to the administrator. So these kind of business automation can be performed using the tool called Okta Workflows. We can also do some other form of authentication, which are not considered as single sign-on, using one of the Okta product called Okta Access Gateway. That is a product used to do legacy authentication, and it's one of the features of Okta. There is one more product from Okta, which is called Okta Advanced Server Access, which helps us access different servers using the Okta credentials. Basically, if we try to authenticate to any of these servers, we need to have a different set of credentials, which are local to those servers only. But using Okta Advanced Server Access, we can just use one single credential managed centrally by Okta as a platform, and we can log into those machines as well. So these are the benefits of Okta. Okta calls it as Okta Identity Network, and it's a very big circle with different products from Okta. And you will also see that when we also want to add an application, we'll first check if the application is available in the identity network. If it is, then it becomes very simple for us to integrate that application. So are you guys excited? Did you knew about these different products from Okta, which we are going to study? Some maybe we can do hands-on, some may not. Some can be just theory, but any idea about these products?
Yes, I heard about most of these in the training program that we did earlier. Um, so at least I have some cursory knowledge of it.
Right. All right, so moving to our day one, or as I can say, the first week activities is for you to get familiar with the SharePoint and prerequisites. I believe you have already done that. So let's start our discussion with users and groups. So we have already discussed what are identities. Identities are like users, and users can be our employees, partners, contractors, consumers, customers, uh, servers, applications, and so on. So these all have some form of identity associated. We call them collectively as users in Okta, and we will see how we can create those users. But before doing that, um, have you signed up for an Okta developer tenant already?
Yes, sir. Are you referring to the Okta like program in essence? Like there was like two, three accounts that it was made, user accounts and then the administration accounts.
Yes. So, like, do you have your own Okta console tenant where we can work, right? I think that was part of our prerequisites to go to developer.okta.com and create an account for yourself.
That's correct, Sumit. So all the students received instructions in the prerequisites document. So they should have created their developer tenants, multiple tenants as a matter of fact, for org down the road. So team, has anyone not been able to sign up for a free Okta developer account and have access to their own Okta org? Sumit, I don't hear any those. So I will assume everybody has access to their Okta org. If you don't, please speak up. Sumit can help you. If there's any need for clarification, we can certainly assist you with that.
I had a question regarding this. I did make an Okta org or a developer account, but I actually, it said in the notes, it said to add a third email address and give it super admin access, which I actually didn't do. Do you think we could talk about that?
I can
No,
comment on that, Sumit, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So team, what the instructions told you to do was go to developer.okta.com, sign up for an account. You'll have to use an email address, of course. Go to the same website again, sign up for a second account, which will require a different email address. So now you have one org with one email address, a second Okta org with another email address. By default, whatever account you sign up with, you become the super admin within that org. So at this point, you only have one account. In the event your primary and only account gets locked out, you'll have to contact Okta support. You'll have to go through some effort to get that unlocked. So it's good practice to have a secondary elevated account. So the third email address that I was referring to could be the backup account that you could create in both the orgs. So in the event your primary account gets locked out or something happens, at least you don't lose access to your Okta org from a super admin perspective. Does that provide some clarity?
Yes. I was just a bit confused about how I am to add another user to this thing.
No problem. Sumit will tell you that. If you haven't, if no problem. Sumit will tell you how to do that, and then when you have an opportunity, you can create that. I'll hand it back to Sumit. Sorry, Sumit, didn't mean to jump in here.
No problem. So when you sign up for a developer account, the email address to which you sign up, by default, it becomes an administrator. And regarding creating another user and making it an administrator, that is something which we are going to discuss in this class. So need not to worry if you have missed on any of the steps. We are going to review those steps here. So this is how your Okta tenants look like when you're not authenticated. When you're signed up for an Okta tenant, you must have received an email for activation, and you will receive a URL from Okta, which looks like this: dev-some numbers.okta.com. This is a dedicated URL given to you. So those of you who are not aware about the tenant concept in cloud computing, so it's like there is one platform called Okta, and Okta is providing you a limited space, or let's say a limited resource, which is just dedicated for you or your organization. So it's like from a big storage, they create multiple storage units, and they keep your data onto those blocks. These are called as tenants. It's like you have a apartment, right? And you rent out different floors to different people, but just a single apartment. So those are the concepts of tenants in Okta, or in any cloud computing system like AWS, Azure, or any product which is online, like even Gmail, right? Gmail is they have a very big email storage server, and when you sign up for an account, they create a storage unit just for you where you have your 50 gigabytes of email storage allocated to you. So those would be called as tenants. So going forward, if I say Okta tenant, do not confuse. It's is the dedicated URL given to you from Okta. And since this is a developer instance of Okta, it will always start with dev hyphen and some numbers. This is the format how Okta provides you a dev tenant. So you can bookmark this URL directly. I have seen students going to developer.okta.com every time and then authenticating from there because as they are not aware about this dedicated URL. So if you bookmark this, then you can just go to your Okta tenant directly and authenticate to your Okta. So this is how the Okta login page looks like. This is the default logo of Okta, and you put in your username and password, and you should be able to log in. Sorry, let me log into this tenant. If you see my login page is different, do not worry, we will see how we can customize that. So when you log in for the first time as an administrator, this is the admin console, which you would find. And if you see, they added hyphen administrator to your URL. Earlier, it was just dev hyphen this number.okta.com. Now it's hyphen admin is added, which confirms this is an admin console, and only you as an administrator can access this console. Any other employees of your organization, they would not be able to get to this page. They have another console, which is called as end user console, which we can also go to by clicking on these four boxes, and we can click on my end user dashboard. So this will take us to a regular user homepage or dashboard or tiles, the way you want to call it. So this is a dashboard where you can see all of your apps at one place, which are allocated to you or assigned to you, and you can access them just by clicking on the app itself. So currently for me, I have assigned myself 3 different applications, and I can see that under the work section. We can customize this dashboard as well, which we will see going ahead, how you can add different categories and so on. So this is an end user console, which is called as Okta dashboard. And this is an admin console called as admin dashboard. So going forward, if I just refer to this as an admin dashboard and the other one as a dashboard, please do not confuse. When I say just dashboard, I mean end user dashboard. When I use admin dashboard, then I mean this console where you can perform admin related activities. And this is a default getting started page. When you log into a new tenant, it tells you what needs to be performed in Okta as a beginner, or if you want to like create a goal that you want to do these many actions, then you can just track, and as soon as you complete those actions, Okta will just mark it there. Practically, I have not seen companies using this, but you can definitely give it a try. You can customize a goal, you can add a goal and so on. So you can say that you are an IT administrator and you want to use Okta to build a custom app or a partner app integration or anything else, and you can just build out a list of the actions you want to do. But like this has nothing to do with Okta as a management. This is just to like specify for this kind of activities, we use different tools in an organization called ServiceNow, Jira, or Confluence, or any other tool to track your activities or the progress. Going to the dashboard feature of Okta, this is a page which gives you an overview of your entire tenant. It tells you what are the different changes in your users, applications, and groups. Whether or not some changes were done by any other administrator who has access to this admin console, which you can see here in the org changes. If there are any errors in any application or with for any user, you would be able to see those here in the task. Not just error, you will also see some other events. We will review these tasks later on. This security score or under security monitoring, this percentage what you are seeing is the strength of security for your Okta tenant. We can see how is this calculated and how we can improve the security score. So currently this Okta tenant is standing at 71% security score. That means it's still 29% weak as per the Okta. So we will see how we can move it to 100% and whether it's possible to move to 100% or not. And we'll discuss about different other security features which you're able to see here called threat insight and suspicious activity reporting. So this is a dashboard to give it like a bird's eye view of entire Okta tenant. Now for our today's session, we will start our discussion on users. So we'll see how we can create users in different ways and what the information we need to create a user and if we can update those information later on or not. So Okta has a feature called directory. Our directory is like a nothing but a database. Have you used Excel before, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you have used Excel before, you've seen, right? Excel has rows and columns, and you can create headers and you can put different values on those headers as a columns itself, as rows. One row is considered as one entry. So that record belongs to one information. So similarly, directory service is nothing but a database where we store the information about our users and groups. And Okta has one such directory services, which is called as Universal Directory or just directory here as you see it. And that's where we are going to create our users and groups. And we'll see the different information or like as in Excel, there can be different headers under which we'll put information about the user. So we can like put first name, last name, their date of birth, their password, and another informations. We call these different information about the user as an attribute or property. Okay, so like your first name is your property or an attribute. Your last name is your property or an attribute. The project you're working on can be your attribute property. Let's say that your address can be your attribute property. So any information about a user is called as attribute or a property. In Okta, we call it as an attribute, but in other tools, it is called as properties. So let's say if you are talking to somebody who is not from Okta, but they're using some other IAM tool, and if they say, can you tell me about this property value? Do not confuse, it means the same thing, which we call it in Okta as attributes. Okay, so if I go to directory people, that's where we will be able to see all the users in our Okta tenant. Currently, if you have just signed up for the developer account, you will only see one user here, which is the account through which you created this Okta instance. For me, I am seeing a lot of users because I have created these users manually here in my Okta tenant. You might not be able to see the same here. So in order to create a user, we click on add person. And this is a form which needs to be filled in order to get a user created. And if you see these information which we need to fill for the user, first name, last name, username, primary email, group, and password. These are all required fields except for groups. So a required field means you have to fill in. These are mandatory information about a user to be provided to Okta. Apart from this, user cannot be created. So if any of these information is missing, Okta will throw an error that it is missing and you need to specify the values before creating the user. So let's say I want to create a user call as Sam Johnson. This is my favorite user. I create this in every training session. If you want to give a specific name, you can let me know. So for username, usually in other systems, it can be your email address. It can be your phone number in a few other systems. It can be a short username instead of your email address or phone number. So different systems accept different forms of username. The way Okta accepts a username is in an email format. So we basically use the email address of a user as a username. One thing to note about the username is it has to be a unique value. There cannot be two users using the same username. So every user in your Okta tenant has to have a unique value. If you try to create two users using the same username, you'll see the first user gets created and the second user gets an error that an object already exists with the same username. So Okta will not even let you create a user with the same username if a user already exists with that. So it has to be unique and it has to be in a format of an email address. So let's say for this user, I would provide the username as sam.johnson at logicconsulting.com. So this is the email address. If you want to give in your tenant, if you want to give gmail.com or any other email addresses which you own to see what happens when you create this user, you can freely use that. Group is optional, so I just leave it for now because we haven't discussed anything about a group. So first we'll discuss and then we'll start using it. Password is again important. So it is asking us what password do we want to set for this account. And by default, set by user is the option which is selected. So it means that I will not specify any password. Okta will ask the user itself. It will ask Sam to set a password for his own account. And how will it do so? By sending an email for an activation of his account. And there will be a link in that email, which when clicked, user will have an option to set a password for himself. If I want to set a password while creating this account, then I can say set by admin and I can specify a password like anything I want. So you can specify this password. In that case, Okta is not going to send any email to the user letting them know about this password. Then you have to manually inform user about this password which is set. And again, to note, when you are setting up this password, you have this checkbox which goes away when I select this. So I have a different checkbox, but the other checkbox which I had, it just went away. So if I select this option, I have a checkbox which says user must change password on first login. So that means this password which I'm setting up is a one-time password. And as soon as user logs in with this password, they have to change and set a password of their own. If I uncheck this box, then this is no longer a temporary password and it becomes, and user may, if they want to change, they can, otherwise they can just keep using it. But if this is selected, then it's mandatory for them to change it. Okta will force them to change the password. It will not let them continue without changing it. Okay. So let's say I don't want user to change the password. I just want to set a password and create a user. Then I click on save and this user should be created. So there were no users with the same username, otherwise I should have received an error and a user should be in here. So if you just scroll down this list, you should be able to see Sam Johnson here. I'm not seeing it, so what I'll do is I'll click on this magic button called refresh and they should be here. Top itself. So I have this user called Sam Johnson And if I click on the username, I can see more information. So I can see the first name and last name together. So this first name and last name together is called as display name. So this is what I can see here. I can see the email address or the username which I provided to the user. I can see that they are active. So the user is active and can log in and use Okta service. I can go to profile for this user and I can see the similar things which I provided in that form, the username value, the first name, last name, the primary email I provided, and yeah, so those are the information I provided while creating this user. But if you can see, this list does not end with those 4 or 5 attribute. It has a lot of other information which we can fill. These all single information are called as attribute, and collectively they are called as attributes. Okay, so we can provide these information or attributes values to this user. For this, I need to click on edit button here, and I can provide the values. Let's say I want to tell this user is an IT administrator. I can provide the value for title. I can, let's say, also provide some street address, any random street address. Right, and I can click on save. So this will update these values for Okta profile. So now the street address is saved against this user. The title is saved against this user. So whenever I want to know um, who is Sam Johnson for in my organization, I can go to his profile and I can view his information, and it tells me he is one of the IT administrator. Any questions so far?
No.
Sumit, I want to make sure everybody's, we didn't put anybody to sleep. Hey, folks, I know it's a new concept and it's expected. If you feel some of this or all of it's going over your head, just want to make sure that you guys are still engaged. Make sure that you respond with a yes, no. You can chat if you're shy, you don't want to speak up, you want to keep your mic on mute, that's fine. Just let the instructor know so he's aware that you are engaged if you have any questions, and he can accommodate you accordingly.
Yeah, I understand. I have one question that just came to my mind right now, that in the prerequisites that we have, you know how it says to make 2 developer tenants? Can we make it the same way how you just made that user account right now, and then assign them an super administrator role?
That's a very good question, and I would say no. The reason being, when you create a user like this, the way I created, you are creating 2 different accounts, but there is only single tenant. So when we say developer instance, we mean 2 different tenants. So this URL, you should have 2 of these URL. Sorry, 1 minute. This is my. Yeah, so we need 2 of these URLs for org to org, which we'll discuss later on. So for which you need to sign up on developer.okta.com twice using 2 different email addresses.
Okay, I understand. And then I did make the other 2 email addresses, but I didn't know how to. I know it told us how to do it in the curriculum, but how do I make them connected to my account, to my super administrator account? Do we have to do that, or do we just leave it?
No, we'll just leave it. It's a 2 different account. We'll not connect it together yet.
Okay, all right.
Any other question from anyone? Okay, one principal rule I want to let the class know. I'll ask you to ask me questions. If not, then I'll go ahead and ask questions and see who can answer. Right? So please be aware. You can ask me any question. Please don't be afraid of asking questions. I can reply. I can tell you the same thing again and again in different ways so that you can understand. But yes, if nobody's asking me question, then I would assume that you have understood the topic, and in that case, I may ask you questions.
Hey, Sumit.
Yeah.
How would you add extra attributes? I know in the training they talk about you can add extra attributes to the user's profile.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you do that in here in the dashboard? Or is that something that's only available for the accounts that you're importing from a directory? Because I know there was like a 20 attribute and then like 100 plus attributes, depending on where the profile is sourced from.
Correct. So we can definitely add as many attributes here. So this list which you see, it's a default list. There are some other custom attribute I have added, but we can definitely add an attribute of your choice. We'll go through that in the later part of the course, but just to answer your question, we can go to profile editor, and here we have user. We call this as a profile. So we have this user profile, and we can add an attribute from this place. So we'll go in details on adding these attributes. For now, we will look into the default attributes which we have.
Okay, I had one follow-up question.
Sure.
And I might be jumping ahead, but so you added attributes. Can we do that for specific groups, or is that when you add an attribute, is that done like by user, or is there a way to do it like by a group of people?
Okay. So the attribute itself can be created for a profile. So in Okta, and all users come through a profile called as user here in the profile editor, which we just saw, right? So when you create an attribute here, let's say for our demo, if I create an attribute and just name it as sample attribute, I'll explain what these fields mean. But just for now, I'll call everything as sample attribute and click on save. Then this attribute is global to all the users. So if I go to Sam Johnson, this user will also have the sample attribute which I created here,
Okay.
if you see. And if I go to any other user, they will also have this attribute, right? So any user in my organization will get this attribute. The values, those can be defined in multiple ways. What value this attribute will have, that can be source specific definition, that can be some kind of rules we can make, or let's say that we call that rule as mapping. So we will define those mappings, or we can use product like Okta workflows, and we can set that using an automation as well. Or otherwise, manual is always the option, like going to an individual user's profile and clicking on edit, specifying the value here. But yes, in Okta, we cannot set an attribute value using groups, to answer your question.
Okay.
I will quickly create one more user so it becomes a bit clear for the people who might have missed it. So I'll create another user called as Bob Johnson, his brother to Sam Johnson. This time I'll use a short form of email address called bob.johnson@tlc.com. And last time we used this functionality of set by admin. We are going to use it again. And we are going to specify a password. And we are not going to uncheck this box. So I'm going to check this box which says user must change password on first login. So it makes this password a one-time password, or in other words, it's a temporary password, and user must change this password on their first logon. So Okta will force them, and we are going to observe a difference. So when I click on save, you will notice one thing, but before that, I need to refresh this page. So if you see this status column here, user Sam Johnson, which we created earlier, is active, while this user Bob Johnson, which we created, is in a status called password expired. So status defines the current stage of a user. There are multiple stages. One is, as the name is itself called as staged. That means the user account is created, but there is no password associated with that account. There is no activation email sent to the user to set a password by themselves. So this is like only the informations are provided to the Okta, and Okta has created this account, but there is no activity taking place to set a password for this account either by the administrator or by the user himself. Now the next stage is to activate the user, and that makes the user into a status called as pending user action. So this is one of the status of a user when a password email is sent to the user to activate the account, but user has yet not clicked on that link in the email and set a password for himself. Once user sets the password for himself, after clicking on that link, user goes into active mode. If we as an administrator set a password for the user and we check the box, which is user must change the password, then user gets into a password expired state. While if we don't check that box, so that means it's not a temporary password, and that password can be used for more than one time, the user gets into an active state. Deactivated is a state which we can create for a user when we want the user not to log into Okta platform. This is in case of offboarding or termination from the organization. We have few other status which we will review throughout the course. But any question regarding the status part, we will again have another session on the status itself, but this was a short intro to status, and this is very important while troubleshooting on user login issues, because out of all of these status, only user in the active status can log into Okta. All other status will not allow user to log in without any specific action. So staged user might be able to log in, but there is an action which has to be performed. Pending user action can log in, but for that they need to click on the link and set a password. Deactivated user can never log in until we activate them again. This is the only state where user can just enter their username and password and log into Okta. Any question on this?
Nope, no question yet.
Yeah, no.
Right. Now, similarly, if I go to Bob Johnson's profile or click on his name, I can see his profile, and I can see instead of active, it says password expired. User is now in a one-time password mode. So because I set the password and checked the box to change the password, so I need to share this manually with Bob. And when he uses the password for the first time login, he will be forced by Okta to change it. And these are the attributes which are there for the user, including the sample attribute which we created. So every user would get the same sets of attribute because here the attributes are defined based on a profile level. Now, if I want to activate this user, I will need to log out of my account or log in as a user. So his username was bob.johnson@tlc.com. If I hit next and enter the temporary password, so it forces me to change the password. It says your password has expired, and it asks me to enter my old password, which is a one-time password I was given, and to set a new password. Your new password should be different than your old password. It will not accept your old password as your new password. And we can make it more secure or more difficult by setting up a policy called as password policy later on this course. So if you see these instructions here about the password requirement, that it should be at least 8 characters, no part of your username, and it cannot be your last 4 repeated password. This all comes from password policy, which we will be reviewing later on this course. Now that I have filled in these values, I can click on change password. And if everything goes right, it should change the password for my account. And the password is changed. Now, if you observe, instead of going to the admin dashboard, I am here in the end user dashboard because this user Bob is not an administrator, so they cannot have access to an admin console. So they only have access to this end user console. And currently there are no apps assigned to this user or added to this user profile. And that's why this is blank. And there are other things which this user can do on this dashboard, but that is for the next session. I'll give you a chance to ask me questions here.
Maybe I missed it, but how come this is opening on Oracle and not on the
Okay.
Okta?
That's a good question. So it is opening in Okta. That is a branding which I have done. Because since I was not able to use my other tenant, I use this tenant where I have done some branding, and I have used an Oracle logo, but this is the same dashboard which you would see if
Oh, okay, okay.
you do not have a branding applied. So if I just log into this tenant and go to the end user dashboard, it's pretty much the same thing. So here you have the Okta logo and everything is in the white background. Here instead of Okta, I have just used Oracle as a logo and everything is in orange background. So we will do this branding later on this course as well. So instead of Okta, you will use your own company or organization logo. So it looks like that it belongs to your organization. So as an employee, when I log into this portal, this is something I can trust. I as an employee may not be aware about any security product which you're using like Okta, because since you are an administrator, you know what this product is, right? But an end user might not know what this product is, and they might not feel that this is a trusted product. So when we do this kind of branding, it feels more secure and welcoming to them.
Interesting.
So if no question, then I'll head towards the first assignment for the day. I believe everyone has access to this presentation in the SharePoint. Again, we haven't covered all the topic which is there in the assignment, but at least you should be able to follow this assignment, which is to create a user in 4 different scenarios. 1, password is set by the user and do not check the box for activation email. So when I was creating the user in Okta, I had this option of checking this box called send activation email now, right? So do not check this box. Create another user using set by user as a password method and check the box for activation. Then create third user wherein this will be set by admin, and do not check the box for a one-time password. And create the fourth user wherein you check the box for one-time password and observe the 4 different status of the users. And I want to know in tomorrow that based on your experiences of creating these 4 users, what have you understood about the status they get on these 4 different scenarios? If you have any question regarding this assignment, you can let me know. I can explain it once again.
No, I think that was pretty straightforward.
Sure. And I believe everyone has access to this PDF so that you can go through this assignment.
Yeah, Sumit, I added it to the SharePoint. So team, everyone should have it. Sumit, when you're done, I'll quickly share my screen and let them know, show them where it is, so I can show them at the end.
Sure. So if nobody has a question, then I'm good for today. Mohammed, you can guide them through the location of this file. How can they access this file?
Thanks, Sumit. Team, Sumit's wrapping up today's session. I wanted to see if anybody had any questions or comments before I share my screen.
No questions here.
Okay. So team, let me quickly share my screen here and I'll show you where we're going to be going on SharePoint. As I mentioned, if everybody goes to, once you go to the training site, you will see your respective access will, once you go to the documents folder, you'll see the access that you have been granted. And if you go to your specific folder for November 7, 2022, you'll see that I've dropped some additional, or one additional item in there. Is there, again, I didn't hear any no's earlier, so I don't believe there's anybody on this call who doesn't have access to this. If you are having difficulty accessing this, please let one of your coordinators know and we'll take care of it. And here's the presentation that I've added, so you'll be able to see what Sumit was showing. Any questions?
I actually do have a question. You mentioned this last time we had the introductory meet and greet meeting. You said that there is a chat option on Microsoft Teams. I have been looking for it, but I am unable to find it.
Within the current Teams meeting that you're talking about, is that what we're referring to?
Yes, if somebody wanted to type something instead of.
Sure. Can you
how
see
do
my
you
screen?
open that? Yes.
Is a Teams window showing for you guys right now?
It does. But as a guest, it's grayed out for us. That option isn't available.
I see. Okay. So let me ask you.
I don't think Usfer is a guest. It doesn't show that he's a guest on your screen.
Yet I don't see it.
You don't have
Strange.
this chat button here that like I do?
No, there's nothing between people and reactions. They're right next to each other.
Are you using a web client through your browser or have you installed this on your computer?
I do have it on my computer. I don't know why it would be on a web client.
Sumit, I'll turn to you. I'm stumped. I don't know why he wouldn't see it. Is there anybody else besides us? Is nobody, none of the students seeing this?
Yeah, I can't see the chat button at all. There, it's not even like grayed out. It's just not there at all.
I'm in the same boat. I can't see the chat.
Okay, then I may know, Sumit, you can confirm. I believe this may be related to external users cannot have access to the channel and the chat, maybe because of that. And Sumit, if you know, please comment.
Yeah, I think so. It is because this meeting is organized at channel and they cannot have access to the channel, and that's why, because these chats directly are saved in the channels.
Okay, so then we have an alternative. What we can do is, instead of the chat for the meeting, we created a group where external users are allowed, and we have added some users so far. Whoever is accepted within the invite, they will be able to see this. Is anyone on this call not seen the messages from this group in their teams?
I'm not.
Who was speaking, please? I didn't catch the name.
Irfan.
Irfan, let's see.
I also don't see that.
Okay.
This is,
I tried to join the teams, but I couldn't join it.
All right. So the person who said, Hira, I think you said you couldn't join. Did you get some kind of error?
Yeah, it was just saying that I have to restart the thing, and there's an error in Teams, and I kept trying to restart it and close it, but it just doesn't let me join.
Okay. Is it possible for you to try from a different device, maybe a different computer or your mobile device? I just want to see if it's an account issue or if it's maybe a specific issue with the client that you're using. If that's an
One
option.
more thing, Mohammed and others to take care of it, is make sure that you are logged in with the account through which you are invited. Because Teams let you join the meetings even without logging in.
Good point. So what Sumit's saying is, you know, Hira, it could be because you're joined as a guest, which tells me that you have not logged into Teams, or you may not have created an account with Teams with the email address that you have been invited with. So for example, Asfar created an account with Teams using his email address that he's using for this training. So I'd recommend everybody to do the same, and that will open up some additional access. Now, if beyond that, if that still doesn't work, we're here to help you. We'll work with you offline to troubleshoot and see if we can resolve that. Because I believe you can't have access to this chat, and we'll make sure we don't post things in here. I'll post things in the group chat where external users are allowed, and as you can see, it's signified by the external badge on the top right. So we'll use this for chat, and you can certainly use this during the sessions as well. Your instructor, as well as all the coordinators, we have access to this during the all the time.
I had one question. So, can I sign up with Teams using my Gmail account? So, because you guys sent me my invitation on my Gmail, can I log into Teams using the Gmail or create a profile? Okay.
You can use a Team. You can create a Teams account with any email address that you like. Good questions. Working out the kinks. I appreciate you guys being patient with us. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Sumit, do you have anything else to add before we wrap up?
No, I think I am good from my side. You can work with them in getting the access to the chat. Otherwise, we might need to like find an alternate way of connecting through the chat.
Sounds good. So team, as an action item, in addition to all the assignments and things that Sumit gave you, one more bit of housekeeping. If you can attempt to log into Teams or create an account with Teams with the email address that you're using for the training, and then see if you can access this training chat group. If you're still having issues, or if for some reason your Teams isn't cooperating, I'd recommend if you have the option of installing it on a tablet or a mobile device, just to see if you can get through the registration hump. If you try everything and you still can't get to it, we'll troubleshoot with you, we'll help you. And if all else fails, I'll work with Sumit and we'll brainstorm to figure out some alternative.
Sounds good.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your time. Sorry to keep you a little. I know we started a few minutes late and we stayed extra, so thank you for sticking around. We'll do this again tomorrow, inshallah. Have a good one, everyone.
Okay, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thanks, Sumit. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Bye-bye.